Hello, as the world's business, economic, banking and political leaders prepare to meet in Davos in Switzerland over the next few days, there's no doubt that one of the big issues on the agenda will be China. It's become almost common for Chinese economic statistics to make it into South African business bulletins over the last few years. Jonathan Schiessl is the head of equities at Ashburton Investments International. He joins me now. Jonathan, good day to you.
Good day.
I don't think there's anyone in South Africa who doesn't own something that was made in China. I would imagine virtually every aspect of Chinese economic policy is going to come under the spotlight in Davos.
Increasingly so, particularly at the current time where the Chinese are obviously beginning a very difficult transition. Their business model that they've had, if you like, for the last 30 years, build it cheap and export it, has worked very well, but they've got to the limit of that model now, so they're trying to change it. And of course, now China's the second largest economy in the world, the change will affect all of us. So I think you're right, it's going to be every single aspect of that change will be looked at.
How are they trying to change the economy? I mean, we've had the model you talk about. What sort of comes next for China?
So obviously, there's only, within an economy of, 1.3, 1.4 billion people, second largest economy in the world now, you cannot simply keep growing at double-digit rates of growth. And we've hit that level now. So they need to try and move away from this investment-led growth to more a consumption-led growth. And I think the leaders in China fully understand that, embrace the change, but of course it is going to be tricky because I think certain parts of the Chinese economy have become quite addicted to investment growth, if you like.
There's a big debate in South African political circles about state-led growth. In other words, the role of the state and how big the role of the state should be. Public enterprise, of course, was unleashed in China in those reforms. Are we going to see a smaller role for the state in the Chinese economy, do you think?
I think the reality is that's been happening for the last 10 to 15 years. I mean, most of the jobs that have been created in China over that period have all come from the private sector. And whilst in the listed, perhaps, space, in the stock markets in China, it's mostly state-owned enterprises, a lot of the private sectors being the sector already driving growth. And really, as you rightly say, the government now is trying to encourage the Chinese private sector to become even more prominent because they realise that's the sector which most efficiently uses capital and can drive that growth.
China has huge pollution problems. We all remember how factories were closed down before the Beijing Olympics. The environment's one of the big themes at the World Economic Forum this year. Is pollution beginning to maybe hold back growth in the Chinese economy?
Yeah, there's been a lot of statistics which would suggest that there has been a terrible cost. I think a lot of it is going unmeasured in the official statistics. But when you look at the advent of diseases and diseases that had historically no role to play in China, it's quite horrific, the number of metals in milk and different in the food source and the food chain. So I think the whole pollution issue is reflecting also that political change. You know, the leaders of China wouldn't really have given too much of a concern to pollution 10 years ago. But today, as the leadership is transitioning to this more friendly, this more inclusive model, if you like, then they're having to listen to what their people are suffering. And certainly pollution at the level that it is today is simply unbearable.
We have tensions at the moment between China and Japan. There's a group of islands between them that's disputed, of course. There's nationalism at work in both of these economies and both of these political situations. Do you worry that those nationalisms could over time start to impact not just on trade between them, but that those nationalisms could be quite difficult to control, which could then have an impact on the economy if what's at the moment a war of talking becomes a war of something more serious?
I think there is certainly a risk of this escalating out of control, and I think clearly people have realised that, and we've seen actions out of the US and stuff to try and calm the situation down. Has it calmed down? Clearly not, because obviously the Japanese Prime Minister recently stoked the whole issue up again with his visit to that shrine. So I think it is a dangerous genie to let out the bottle, nationalism. It serves a purpose to a degree, but obviously once it's out the bottle, it's very difficult to control. And I would say, yes, it's got to be one of the risks, I guess, over the next couple of years that this political issue gets, spreads wider. And we're seeing that to a degree that there has been boycotts of Japanese goods within China. There's certainly a sort of a buy China mentality going on, particularly in the auto sector.
Jonathan Schiessl, thank you very much indeed.